Please welcome to the stage, leader in PwC Hospitality and Gaming Consulting, Darin Yug.
Hi, everybody. I'm Darin. Really looking forward to this conversation today. Before I get into introducing our panelists, maybe just a quick, I know there was another session covering hospitality and gaming, specifically around Las Vegas a little while ago. Sign of hands or show of hands as to who maybe was in that session, just to get a sense. Okay, so most of the folks here were there. So we're going to keep this dynamic, and we're going to get into some little level deeper on some of the questions that we were discussed earlier. But please have some of those thoughts ready. So I lead our hospitality and gaming consulting practice at PwC. I've had the pleasure over the last handful of years working with clients really in their transformation journey to cloud. It's been a big movement in your industry, and many of you that are in the industry, I imagine, certainly know that or seeing that on the horizon. Our panelists today have actually spent the last handful of years working toward or down that path. The session you saw this morning was really focused on that broader story. Today's session, I'm really hoping we can get into a little bit more about what's next. So not just for building on the platform that they've all been live with for the last few to 5, 6 years, I think, in Hilton Grand Vacations case, but talking about how this has really enabled a platform for growth. And growth either through acquisition, growth in terms of broadening the capabilities that they're enabling for the business. So with that, I'm going to actually ask our panelists to introduce themselves. Quickly, we've got Emmy Kravetz from MGM, Deo Balkaran from Hilton Grand Vacation, and Cara Steele from Caesars. And so what we'll maybe start off before we jump into some of the content, maybe just introduce yourselves a little about your path to how you got to your companies. And since we're in Las Vegas, and they've all been prepped on this question, so I'm interested in this answer, but what your favorite Las Vegas show is.
Okay.
And why?
Why? Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Emmy Kravetz. I am the executive director of the ERP product team for MGM. I've been with MGM for about 7 years. I joined the company in our IT organization as the business partner to finance. And one of the first things that I did was try to learn what the finance technology landscape looked like. And I quickly determined that we needed an ERP. We had something like 60 systems that our finance shared services and accounting teams had to look at to get the information that they needed to do their daily jobs. And there was a lot of room for limiting those systems and improving their day-to-day work. So I've been with the ERP journey since the very beginning. We started out with core financials on Oracle, financial close and consolidation and account reconciliations, along with we put in the GRC security module as well. So my favorite Las Vegas show recently is America's Got Talent. I'm not a huge fan of that TV show, but it's a really good show if you go see it. A lot of really talented people.
Awesome. Deo?
Excellent. Good morning. Deo Balkaran from Hilton Grand Vacations. I have the privilege and honor to lead the corporate systems team, which comprise of finance, EPM, treasury, HCM, legal, and tax. My journey with Hilton Grand Vacations 5 years ago, we spun from Hilton Worldwide, the parent company. And part of that spin, we had a TSA, and within a year, we had to become independent. And with all that excitement also comes a lot of challenges of establishing a corporate systems technology platform. So we decided, we knew our strategy was we wanted to go cloud. I think that was a very obvious decision. And as we evaluated different products, Oracle made sense for us because it provided that global single instance. And for those of you who was not familiarized with Hilton Grand Vacation, that is the timeshare segment for the timeshare business. So yeah, it's been quite a journey and continue being. I'm sure we'll cover some of those projects and next steps that we're engaged in. But it's been great. I guess my favorite show, actually same, AGT. And the reason why I think this past June, my family and myself, we came to Vegas. I'm not a big TV fan of it either. I don't look at it. My kids, they look at it. But the reason why when Darin asked that question, the reason why I was thinking America Got Talent, for me, it brings things into perspective. You have regular folks like myself, and they come and just showcase their talent, right, across the globe. No different than an implementation, right? You go there and you just showcase your talent and you wait for, prime time or showtime, go live, right? All that work involved. So that's how I relate to that show, and that's what I was thinking about, yeah.
Wow, you brought it back right into... I don't know how that's going to work with some of the other shows, but we'll talk.
He answered that better than I did.
I'm Cara Steele. I am the VP of Compensation for Caesars Entertainment. My journey with Oracle and all the platforms actually goes back not 20 years, but I started with Caesars when it was Harrah's, before all the mergers and things. And I started in data analytics, so my background is actually really in data, and you're like, hey, wait, you're in compensation. I'm just all about the data and clean data and what you can do with that. Over my time with Caesars, I moved from data analytics to corporate finance, which is where my real journey with Oracle began. When we were in corporate finance, we took on the role of starting to really move to a full ERP. Caesars was a company that grew through mergers and acquisitions, and so there was lots of independent fiefdoms. That's how most gaming companies worked when the licensing rolled out in the 90s, particularly regionally. And so everything just had to be pulled in. Things needed to be unified. Over the years, before we even had an option for like a real ERP, it wasn't even an option for a long time. You're kind of gluing things together with bubblegum and popsicle sticks, trying to just make all the data infrastructures work and pulling things together. When I started, I had to use like Microsoft Access to pull all my data together from all these different systems. I mean, that's such a thing, and I hate to put a timestamp on me, but there we go. And then we just evolved, right? It grew, and the financials we actually did planning. That was actually my first piece, because I was in finance and over FP&A, and planning was my first part. And we had Hyperion and moving it to the cloud and using it to do all of our planning across the company was really a big change for us. Having all the budgets in one system, being able to pull everybody's data, forecast, all the things. And right after that, we started to do all the accounting, and it might have actually really been simultaneously. We did all of our accounting and reporting. And HCM, we've done too, and then we've added on procurement and all the other things. And unlike my friends here who are all on the tech side, I actually am the operational user. So now I'm in compensation, and we're rolling out more compensation modules to make all of our HR business partner team members have a more efficient, effective life. And then we're moving into payroll, right, which is really the bridge between all the HR and all the financials, is to have a nice, even-keeled system that will stream through your major back-of-house functions. So my favorite show, actually, I don't have a favorite show, and I have to say I've probably seen almost all of them, and it's a matter of what you want to see and what you're into. And I tell this to people all the time, there's no bad shows on the Strip. They have to go through such a vetting process to even make it here, even if they're in a little tiny showroom that used to, maybe be a restaurant or a buffet. They're still amazing. That being said, the most high-energy concert you'll ever go to, which is worth seeing every time, and I've probably been 4 times, and I wouldn't even say I'm a fan of this musician, but the show is so good, is Pitbull.
I've seen Pitbull.
It is the most, you are ready to have a great time. It feels good the whole show. And
so bringing it back to it feels good the whole time. That's what
the whole time.
Of course.
In Candor, mine's Absinthe. I'm not sure I'm going to try to tie that back to Oracle, but I love that show.
Oh, Absinthe is a great show.
Okay, no, thanks, guys. So why don't we, so again, as I said at the start, we wanted to dive a little bit into, or past, I guess, the starting point, which was we got a little highlight about the beginning if you will, for each of these organizations and how they started. But really it's about kind of what came next. And so, and there are things that are affecting that. The business model's changing. From a, as online gaming as an example continues to gain steam, how that's being supported. There's a lot of movement in terms of property ownership as well, expansion into other regions and so forth. And maybe we could just talk a little bit about sort of once you, I guess I'll call it stabilized initially. Could talk a little bit about what was next on the horizon for you, at least at that time, and maybe share a little bit about that. So, Emmy, can we start with you?
Sure. So we went live in July 2020 in the height of the pandemic, so that was fun. But we immediately knew that there was a lot more that we wanted to do with the system. And we also got a really good look at what acquisition was going to look like because we did our regional properties next. So they were on completely different systems, and we were able to go and bring them into Oracle and get an idea of what that process would look like. Previously, if we had had an acquisition, it would mean months and months of manual processes trying to sort through all of that data just to get it into the system so you could do accounting for it. But with Oracle, it was a few months. We were able to get all of their data feeds coming into Oracle, into the Fusion Accounting Hub. They had the same drill down. They were on our financial statements, and it was very successful. So we did all of our regional properties next, and then we wanted to start to expand, and we did expense management. We did EDMCS and EPM Automate. So that kind of was our phase 2. And we really wanted to start getting the message out to everyone at MGM that we were an ERP first organization. So we wanted to at least consider Oracle for anything that was technology. And sometimes it's not the right fit. And we at MGM and at other gaming hospitality companies as well, we're not just one thing, right? So we're a hotel company, we're a restaurant company, we're a spa company, we're a parking company. We have all of these departments that are out doing amazing work supporting our guests, and they want best of class systems to do that work. And so we end up with just a ton of systems out there that we're trying to do accounting for. And so we wanted to start to make sure that Oracle was a part of the conversation. So if it wasn't the right system, at least pick a system we could integrate to that we could get you data for. We really wanted our operators and the people running our operations to have access to the data that they needed in real time to make good business decisions. So self-service was a huge thing. We wanted to take all that data that we had and use it to actually measure how our business was working and, as I said, make good business decisions. So that was kind of our phase 2.
Mm-hmm. Well, it sounds like well-laid plan at the beginning and executing against that plan, building on it. I think maybe we can shift a deal. We'll come back to you in a second. Cara, maybe talk a little bit about Caesars. Also, I think the initial sort of launch and rollout as that was expanding, and then of course, mergers and acquisitions.
So we started, we were relatively early adopters in the gaming sector for Oracle, and we started our journey probably in 2016, 2017 timeframe, and like I said, rolled out with planning and the financials. We needed one system. We needed one way to do all the accounting, and so with that growing, we rolled out the HCM, and we just rolled out almost just one little segment of HCM first. We didn't do the whole suite out of the gate, just to manage all of our human capital, right? So we have 60,000 employees around the country. We need something to keep them all in the same place. And then from there, we did it in a little bit of a pulse strategy. So it was like big implementation, take a beat, let's refine, let's work, let's fine tune things, get it where we want, implementation, pause, take a beat, get it going. And we had and then COVID, and then we had the merger with Eldorado, which was another set of another company that had also grown through acquisition and had all these independent fiefdoms, we had, I can't even tell you how many different accounting systems, and I don't want to tell you the number of payroll systems we were operating under, but it's a lot. And it makes it really difficult to manage both your 70,000 employees, make sure everybody is in the compensation world treated equitably and all the same roles are treated the same without having that visibility and that data. So again, rolling these things out, and then again, we did it in the same strategy just to integrate, but it was much easier this time because we already had the structure built, right? So we unified a chart of accounts and we all agreed, and we rolled this chart of accounts out, and then every new operation becomes much simpler and simpler to add on. When we did the acquisition of William Hill, we had to build, it was a technology company. This is outside of our expertise, but the Oracle platform afforded us this meaningful flexibility to allow for new departments, new revenue streams, new whole sectors of human capital, right? Where you have all these IT technology teams that didn't necessarily fit in our standard, but it allowed for that flexibility, and the integration becomes relatively easy. It's not easy, but it's easier than piecing together pieces of data and loading them into some central Teradata or Google Data cloud base, right? So it's really helped our business evolve and grow, and I really have high hopes for the future as our business still continues to develop, that this will just only make it faster, easier, and more efficient. We'll get the synergies going. Just time to start will be reduced every time.
That's great. Deo, you've got a little more history than I think everybody on the stage with the platform. Maybe you could talk a little bit about your journey since that time.
Yep. So as I mentioned, when we spun, we made a conscious decision of go big bang across the Oracle product suite, so across EPM, ERP, and HCM. Part of that decision process was Oracle provided us, or we knew we wanted to get into this digital transformation and a self-service model as part of the new journey with Hilton Grand Vacations. Hilton Worldwide, the parent company, there was a lot of manual process. So we knew going in is going to be a major cultural shift with the team members, a major change management aspect. So we figured from an adaptation perspective, it just worked going big bang, and then you just address as it come along, versus adaptation of change is not always an easy process. So we did it in 9 months, and obviously very intense timeline. It was a great execution with focusing on getting it to the finish line. We definitely had challenges with some change management, because it's a big cultural change from an organization perspective. Think of that housekeeper who's not used to get on a system to do an address change, right? They typically call up and at your service or HR would make that change. Now it's on that team member to log in and make that change. So we've gone through that phase. We successfully implemented it and onboarded, and team members slowly got into that journey. But it allowed us, one, to do that digital transformation, two, enable self-service, and three, establish that foundation as we continue growing as an organization where we can scale globally from an Oracle platform perspective. Long behold, a year ago, we acquired Diamond Resorts, which within my area of responsibility with any acquisition, for synergy and merging, a lot of times organization will go through the decision of which side from a technology perspective you would go with. Well, within corporate systems, for us, it was pretty much a no-brainer. Diamond Resort had EBS. We had the cloud. There was a lot of excitement with the corporate system legacy Diamond folks because they wanted to get on the cloud, new technology, right, new learning. So for us, that transition The hard work we had done as part of that spin, setting that foundation, just enabled us, right, with PwC as our SI partner, just continue scaling on that existing platform and just add the operations, right, from a DRI perspective onto our existing platform. As a matter of fact, we started that journey August of last year, and HCM was deployed as a single 1AGV organization, was deployed in April, and June we deployed finance, ERP, EPM. So obviously with that journey for us, it was very strategic to making sure you know, the Diamond operation fits within our platform. That's one. Two, have a very strategic partner, right, like PwC, to make sure they have that landscape and understand globally what it takes. Because part of Diamond, the European operation, we have quite a few resorts there. So bringing that into the existing platform and the chart of accounts and, you know, all that fun stuff you go through, right? So having PwC from an SI perspective was very strategic and helped us navigate through that journey. So that's where we're at. We got additional projects coming up, which I'm probably, you may ask, I don't want to jump ahead, but that's how we got where we got, where we're at the current moment.
We'll come to that, but we'll start with you maybe on the next question. It was really about what learnings you took from that first round. So you've had that first experience, now you've gone through a second, or in Emmy, your case, you've done enhancements, you guys have continued to evolve. What have you learned along the way? What are the types of things that, as you look back, you know, over the years, how has that chartered for you some lessons learned?
Great question. The first thing comes to my mind is change management. Technology enablement, I think having an SI partner, your technology team, I don't want to say that's the easy part, but I think that's the least complex piece, in a sense of once you have all the requirements and you know strategically where you're going. The technology enablement is you're focused, you have a plan, and you're driven to the end state. That change management piece is something, as part of the initial spin, especially with that cultural shift. I think we initially underestimated it. We should have started it way early. So that was a lesson learned, where it's not early enough when you embark in a big project to make sure change management is part of it. Another lessons learned from the initial implementation, which was very successful for us on the second implementation with the merger and acquisition and even the ongoing quarterly releases. Initially when we implemented, once the implementation was completed, we just came above water, and all of a sudden, Oracle started bringing these quarterly releases. So what we end up doing is there was no way, and again, it depends every organization risk tolerance, right? Depending the level of testing you would want to do. Obviously, from an AGV perspective, sometimes we probably go a little overboard, but again, at the end of the day, we want to make sure the business operate the way they should operate. So as part of the initial implementation, we quickly shift to RPA, robotic process automation, where we automate a bunch of scripts across the pillars. Both HCM and finance. As a result of that, now when these quarterly update comes in, and part of that is we partner with Oracle as well as early adapters, which means you get that release 6 weeks in advance. So when that release comes in, within 2 to 3 days, RPA, we run through all of our scripts, and any feedback, defects, issue, observation that we see, we work with Oracle and identify those issues, so it gives their development team time to fix it and retest it before the actual, test release is done that first of the month, depending on your quarterly schedule, and then that production to deployment makes it a lot less, it makes it easier and a lot less stressful, because normally it would drop 1 weekend, and 2 weeks later, it would get into production. So depending on how many module enablement you have, it could be overwhelming. So RPA was definitely a good lesson learned from us. And the third lesson I would say with PwC as part of the implementation, with that merger and acquisition is don't be afraid to challenge the status quo. Meaning, folks are used to doing things a certain way for years, and you just got to be a champion and continue echoing the benefit, right, that they're going to get with this new system. Don't get me wrong, there's going to be bumps, but I think the key is, as long as you embed that trust and they know, your customer, your team members know, you're going to be alongside of them of that journey. I think it brings a level of comfort where they understand it's not too bad of a change, right? So that was the other thing is, making sure you question the status quo, and as a result of that, you generate a lot of harmonization and synergy across systems.
Okay, no, that's great. That's great. And I do want to, we'll come back to kind of the what's next soon. Emmy, we heard, those of you that were in the last session heard MGM's getting very close to going live with supply chain. But looking at that, but also just looking at the journey you've been on, lessons learned, thing that you brought forward into this implementation and things considering going forward.
Yeah, so I think a couple things to share. So when we deployed finance, we deployed several modules, and then we continued our journey and added more modules to that. And we also had a huge influx of enhancement requests. So once our users got accustomed to Oracle and started saying things like, well, it would almost be perfect if it just X. And then every one of those X's turned into enhancement requests, right? And we're a couple years down the road, and we still meet every day or every week to talk about change requests. So we quickly found out a couple of things. One, it's really hard to have an internal team that supports all of those modules, right? And some of them we use a little bit, and some of them we use a whole lot. So it was really difficult to do that and to have a team that could continuously work on these enhancements. So we ended up going to more of a managed services model. They also do automated testing for us for our upgrades and things like that. And we found that was a better model for us. It was more cost effective, and it was almost impossible for us to service our end users the way that we needed to with an internal team. The other thing that I think we learned after finance was that we did not use Oracle enough. We have a great sponsor in Colleen Bamba, who you guys heard from at the last session if you were there. And Oracle has always been very willing to come forward and let us talk to the product team. Sometimes we hear something that somebody else is doing, and we want to understand if that's something that would apply to us. And they're really helpful at doing those things. But in the beginning, we just didn't really recognize what an outlet that was, and that it was somebody that we could just call and say, like, hey, this is what we're thinking about doing. How would you suggest that we approach it? Or is this a bad idea? And sometimes they've been able to set us on the right path, so to speak. So I would say that we completely underutilized them in the beginning.
Mm-hmm. Cara?
With lessons learned, I would definitely echo everything you said, so I won't repeat that. But I have two other pieces aside from change management, and maybe to enhance on the change management. For us, it's really buy-in. Again, we have a wide footprint across the United States and now internationally, and so getting that local, regional buy-in, and for those of you who don't know how regulated gaming is, it is intensely regulated, so in some cases, it's getting the regulators buy-in. We had to get a license for Oracle. Oracle had to go through an approval process in one of our states to be a tool we could use. So getting buy-in across the board is its own setup, and it takes a lot of time. Even with change management, you have, the buy-in is integral, particularly in gaming. But the other major lesson, and this again comes back from my data background, is data governance. Right, so you get all these requests for changes. We need a new account. We need a new department. Do you? We need a new job. We need a new position. Do you? Just because you might not be looking it up correctly or whatever. And so managing your data infrastructure to keep it clean and tight and uniform, so we can easily look at the whole company rolled up and know that A equals B everywhere, and all of these things are universal. Like data governance, if you don't implement, particularly when you really roll out Oracle like in a larger scale, if you don't implement a data governance policy, and like we even have a data governance committee, because some changes you need some new data structures, but you don't need all of them. And so maintaining that to keep clean, aligned information, and so the users know what this is for, what it means to the financials, what it means to a team member if it's in the HCM section. Like, I can't say enough about the importance of a meaningful data governance structure and policy.
So that brings us to kind of what's next then. Cara, maybe you could start, just even building on that. So what's next for Caesars?
So January, we will be rolling out full-scale payroll, and we will have one aligned payroll system. Can't wait, so excited. With that, it will be, at that point, fine-tuning payroll, right? It's gonna be great, but there's gonna be parts that are gonna need tweaking and modification. Again, we're in lots of different states with lots of different tax laws, different union organizations with different timing for paychecks. All the things have to get really ironed out. We're doing all the testing now, and from that, it'll be an arc of refinement, right? So integrating now with, like, from a compensation perspective, integrating with our stock compensation modules, right? So once we're on payroll, we can have full integration there. We can have also, like, really, we've already done a lot in HCM for training and recruitment, but once we have that whole thing, that process becomes really streamlined. So all the training hours can get recorded, all the recruitment, everybody just goes straight into payroll. It's not stop and start. And so it'll just be really ironing out all the wrinkles that we might not know we have because it is stop and start right now. And so once it's there, smoothing, and then I fully anticipate getting all of those. It would be perfect if we had, that was I can't tell you how many times I feel like I've said that, I've heard that from other people. Can we just do this one thing? And so,
it's funny, I mean, as we spent a lot of time with folks that have been operating on the old system for 30 years, right, or 20. I mean, some of these you've been around for a long time, and wanting that, to take advantage of the time right now that we're actually investing on it. It's very different than we got to boil the ocean and get this done in one implementation, and then we're never coming back to it. The fact that cloud is sort of living and evolving as it comes quarterly, so those enhancements not only are necessarily with yourselves, but could also be with Oracle, bringing some of those capabilities on. It's a shift. It's a mindset shift. Not to say it'll never end. That wasn't my point in making those enhancements. But the fact that the people want to make it better and make it more useful, it's great. So great to hear.
The reporting will be the next big one too for us, like particularly on the HR side. We have lots of great financial reporting already built out. We have an amazing financial team that does that. I am over the HR analytics, so part of my job, and it'll be much easier once we have the payroll integrated, is just building out super enhanced reporting. So managers, whether you're in like Bettendorf, Iowa, or Atlantic City or Las Vegas, can go click in, they can see their team, they can see their department turnover, they can check their diversity, right? Like diversity, equity, and inclusion is a huge platform Caesars is on, and so how am I managing that? Am I doing a good job? Are all my team members growing? Where are their performance? Are they being paid equitably? All those things. The goal is to have them basically push button, right? Self-service, just like you were saying. Like, I can control my team and put that ownership in the hands of our leaders.
Well, Deo, what about you? What's next for?
Yeah, I'm going to be cognizant of time. So quickly, on the HCM front, for us, it's about how do we continuously enhance that team member journey from hire to retire. What I mean by that is simplification, a unified platform. Because oftentimes, right, as I said, certain area of our business, like when you think of the resort, technology is not their day-to-day thing. So the simpler you have a front end, leave the complexity in the back end. So that's kind of what we're focusing on the HCM side. On the finance side, we're looking at a global procurement rollout as a result of the acquisition and capital planning. So we have a unified single application across the globe. And then also we're looking at implementing the financial accounting hub, so which will allow us to scale and grow and unify, from an integration perspective.
That's great. That's great. Emmy, have you talked about that?
So we're doing supply chain right now, going live Q4 this year. So we're doing warehouse inventory control and direct procurement. We're also starting FAW, the Fusion Analytics Warehouse. We found that over time, our users needed bigger and bigger and bigger reports, which is more strain on the system, and it comes with its own problems. So FAW is something we've done a proof of concept with that we think is a good solution for that. And we're also starting a capital planning project, so we can definitely help you with that as we go down the road.
Very good.
Awesome. Well, why don't we just take, if there are any questions from anybody. Now you've heard, those of you that were in the last session and now here, you've kind of heard sort of a higher level point of view and maybe some more details. Any questions from anybody here? Okay. We've got one in the back. So just to repeat the question, so what was the sort of biggest win, I think first, that you've seen or experienced, and then kind of what's the biggest challenge from a change management perspective especially? Anybody want to jump in?
From a Hilton Grand Vacation perspective, the biggest win for us is when we did the change management, part of it is we had ambassadors or champions, right, within key strategic location who championed that change. So the adaptation, went fairly well in certain areas, and then is just encouraging other team member. Some of the challenges was related to, I guess, it's that, especially in certain areas, is I want to call it maybe the technology fear of self-service. Like being afraid of, oh, what if I do it wrong? What's going to happen? Will it impact my paycheck, right? Like, especially if you do an HR change. So I think it's some of that fear, and certain folks took a little longer to maybe to adapt to it, and we just had to continue, having campaign and maybe incentives, and try to with a prize here or there, right, to get them onboarded.
Emmy, you want to?
So I think one of our biggest challenges is that we tend to be moving from a 30 or 40-year-old green screen solution, and thankfully we have employees who've been here sometimes as long as those systems, and so they're uncomfortable with moving to a different type of platform, and so training can be very difficult. And they get into the training classroom, and it's more about staying caught up with the training and with their peers than about really learning. So we've had to change our strategy and move to a more pre-learning where they're doing it independently on their own before they end up in the classroom, and that's made a tremendous difference. I would say the number one thing that we do from a change management perspective that moves the needle is we do a roadshow and go out and talk to as many people as we can and get their feedback, listen to where they think we might have problems. I'll talk to anybody I'll go to a stand-up in a warehouse, or I'll go talk to CFOs. I'll talk to anybody who's going to give me feedback that I can use to make the project better. So I think talk to people.
Cara, anything?
Our biggest win, I believe, is really the flexibility and the ability to have a really agile tool that helps us get, with the diversity of our business Emmy alluded to earlier, that helps us get things done, whether it's in the hotel sector, the gaming sector, food and beverage, retail, entertainment, digital. It helps us get things done in one place, and that win is just enormous. Biggest challenge, I also will agree with Emmy on that, is that it was the technology hurdle, and I call it the hurdle because we didn't ease into something from green screen to high-end cloud. We went from green screen to high-end cloud. Like there was no somewhere in the middle for anybody, where a lot of companies, you know, they've upgraded somewhere. We went from a software from like 1990 to a software from 2017, and there was nothing in the middle. And that was a big hurdle for a lot of the team members, was just to get used to not being able to have a GUI interface even. Like that was, you'd be surprised how much change management is just like a GUI interface. Like, what do you mean, not F12? And I'm like, well, not F12.
Yeah,
like, that's what I mean. I mean, click that icon, not F12. I don't know what to tell you.
All right, well, thank you. So if there are any other questions, oh, one more.
Just maybe one coming from DHL. Is anyone of you also deploying the EPM cloud? If so, what are your experiences? And if not, is that on your roadmap?
EPM. So I think I heard it as.
Yeah, can you repeat the question?
Yeah, can you repeat it? Maybe there's a microphone.
Mic.
Is that better?
Yes,
Much better.
Fantastic, yeah.
Thank
So
you.
I'm interested, has any one of you also deployed the EPM cloud for reporting, forecasting, budgeting purpose? If that is the case, what are your experiences? If not, is it on your roadmap?
So EPM,
Yeah,
implemented or roadmap?
no, we use the planning cloud. So that was my actual first foray into the whole Oracle suite. Caesars has been on Hyperion for a long time, and then through the acquisition, Hyperion converted, and I love it. I think it's a great tool. When we rolled out to the cloud, that was me. I was the implementer and working with our implementation team, and it was my core responsibility over corporate finance. I think it's, for even people who are afraid of numbers, when budgets come around and you get your marketing department, they're like, oh my gosh, numbers, and it's like, GUI interface. I could give them an Excel document if they're comfortable with Excel. I could also give them a GUI interface. If they're like, oh wait, I can just type a number here and it'll spread it based on my seasonality, yeah, it will. And so, and you can do a lot of driver-based budgeting, which is great for the departments and teams that have meaningful drivers. We are able to do all our labor planning and link in with HCM and do position management. Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, we leverage it in the same capacity, and it's been a great experience for us as well.
And we're just starting down that journey with capital planning.
So great. Okay, well, thank you, everybody. Thanks to you all for joining us today, and thanks for joining the session. Have a great rest of your week at CloudWorld.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks.